lot of times I had no idea
really
what was
know.
happening.
And then sometimes it felt like the writers didn't know.
Yes, I agree. I do think there was an element of like, I think some things are really happy accidents. I feel like my character in many ways was this really happy accident.
Yeah.
But and we just lucked out. We just lucked out. That the happy accidents we could sort of chalk up to being intentional after the fact.
Yeah. The tone of the show, like there was no shows like that. There was nobody was doing this kind of tone at this time.
No, and I don't think we knew, especially that early. And I think a lot of people don't realize how many times Michael and I were pulled aside and people said, like, we're not sure if this makes sense. And I think because the tone was so undefinable, that the fear was that we were a little too ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, I think we were, but it was intentional, right? So it's the idea of how ridiculous is too ridiculous. And I remember Cherie in this episode, to me, pointing out my walk. Because Amanda's walk was a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of it was because I couldn't actually walk in heels. So the overcompensating is true because I'd never worn heels in my life. So to like, it started out as just how can I convincingly walk down this hallway turned into Amanda's walk.
Oh, and it's so funny.
But what it really was, and I've spoken to you about this, like it really did come from a place of me, Becki, overcompensating to look like I'm going to sashay. But the sashay was just too big. It was so much sashay. And I remember, I think Cherie was like, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure this walk. It might be too much walk. And I was like, okay. And then I did it again the same way.
Yes,
but that even something like a walk, how ridiculous is too ridiculous? And where is that tipping point? And I think the show was really brave, but also that was a constant discussion. People don't realize like, well, if we're in a scene and you're doing something crazy over the top and so am I, and so where does it ground? And that's where we have, I think, America to thank because she always, and she's in a wig and she's in braces, but she would bring it back. And
so always real.
We were lucky though.
Yeah.
That we didn't have to be too worried about the real part. So we were allowed to just play and sort of be this sort of ridiculous.
We didn't have to tell the story. They used to have a saying, cut to America, which they would say cut to America whenever they didn't know what the story was.
Right.
They'd say, it was like something they said in the editing room. Like if they were like, what's the story here? They'd say cut to America and her face will tell you the story.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, that's partially because she was the central character
but it's also
her story,
just how, I think for her, everything had to be so grounded and real. And you and I had this privilege of sort of figuring out what that even meant.
Right.
What that meant.
And we were playing, she was playing a character that had to be open. And we were characters that had created personas to get through our lives.
Even our characters were playing characters. Yeah. And I think I lucked out. Well, no, this is where my, I think, lack of experience, I was trying so hard even to like walk in heels. And somehow that became part of Amanda's character because Amanda was practicing in the mirror and Amanda was overcompensating. I think so much of Becki's overcompensating, I think people chalked that up to good acting. But really, I was just like, how do I walk like this and talk like this? So I had to practice. And I think Amanda's someone who practiced how to exist. I think, I do think in the morning she's like, we will walk. But it overlapped. I think a lot of my insecurities bled into Amanda's and it became more of a full-fledged character.